Damon Martin, MMA fighting here with BKFC veteran, UFC veteran, and now AEW superstar, Paige VanZant. Paige, how are you? Welcome in. Thank you for doing this today.
Thank you. Of course. I'm doing really good. I'm in Florida and Miami, so it's always a good day here.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you, do you have room left on your resume at this point? Because I think you just keep adding on new things every time we talk.
I know, but no, there is plenty of things I haven't accomplished yet that are still on my bucket list. So luckily I get to check one more off. I feel like I'll check it off after I have my first pro wrestling match. But yeah, there's still plenty of things that I want to do that I haven't done yet. So I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's start off, of course, with the big news. You signed with AEW. And for anyone that's out there curious, because, of course, you've been making appearances in AEW since last year. But from my understanding from talking to your management team, this is not like a one-shot deal. This is not you popping in for an appearance or one match. This is a long-term deal with AEW, correct?
Oh, it's a long-term partnership for sure. And this is something that I'm not doing it for I guess just to check it off the bucket list, just to say that I did it. I want to be a part of their show. I truly do. I love what the AEW does. I had gone to a few shows and I was like, wait, this is cool. This is amazing. So Dan Lambert had brought me out just to kind of to check it out. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. And then of course I had to jump in there and get his back on a few things. And I was like, you know what? I'm meant to be a part of this. So it didn't take long for us to convince the AEW that I should be on their team.
Yeah. So how did that conversation go? I mean, has this been in the works for a while in terms of actually inking a deal to join the roster? Is this something that came together pretty quick? How did it come together?
It was something I had told my manager, hey, these are the things I want to accomplish this year. And this was on the list. And then after Dan had started bringing me out to kind of have his back on a few things, and make a statement for American Top Team, it was a pretty easy conversation. I think both sides were pretty well aware of where I belonged, and it was on their roster. So the conversation, honestly, was very easy. It was more just, hey, told my manager, go talk to the owner, tell him I want to be on the roster.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we talked years ago about maybe crossing over and doing some WWE at some point and doing pro wrestling. But you seem like you're a natural fit. Now, I know it's not easy. You have no idea about this, but I actually went to pro wrestling school for several years. Years ago. Yeah, I trained the same gym as John Moxley, who's in AEW, of course. And I know it's not easy. Getting in there, it's nerve wracking. It's a different feeling, I imagine, than even when you're in there for a fight. It's just a different kind of attention. So, but you seem to adapt to it really quickly. You went in there and looked like you were having fun. You were doing you were doing everything great. Did you just kind of immediately feel like you were having a blast doing it?
Oh, instantly. It was the first moment we showed up to the arena. I could feel the energy from the fans, just how amazing the fans of pro wrestling are. They're obsessed with it. And I thought that was just the coolest thing, to be in front of so much energy, people who are so passionate. And, pro fighting fans are great, but sometimes they love you when you're up and they hate you when you're down. Whereas I feel like the pro wrestling fans, they're in it for the long haul. They're die hard, and I wanted to be a part of it. And beyond that, I was just, when I started my training and the moves, I picked it up quickly. And beyond that, I was having just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, I say this as an absolute compliment to you, Paige, that, I've known you for a lot of years, and you are one of the nicest people ever. You're always so gracious with your time. Every time we've ever talked in person, I know we did a lot of stuff during Dancing with the Stars. You were always such a gracious and nice person, but you are playing quite a heel in AEW. And boy, I tell you what, it looks like you were having fun doing it, because you have really the stuff you do with Chris Jericho, and of course the stuff you're doing with Ty Conti. I don't know. Do you like being a heel? Because I like heels. I'm a big fan of heels in wrestling. And don't get me wrong, baby faces are great, but you seem like you're loving playing a heel.
Well, for me, I don't feel like I'm playing a role at all. I'm going out there. They hired me to be Paige VanZant, and I feel like I'm just there to make a statement. I'm there to make a statement in the division with all the girls and let them know that I'm, a very high-level athlete. Yeah, I'm new to pro wrestling, but I am going to pick it up quickly, and I think that they should be aware that I'm a part of the show now.
Yeah, it's funny because I always hear one thing that I heard early on when I talked about doing pro wrestling is they said, take your personality and kind of amp it up by like 10, whatever you're kind of like, kind of take it, ratchet it up to that next level. Doing the selfies in the ring when the guys are on the ground getting kicked, and like there's a lot of stuff you've done that have been really hilarious. And I imagine like this is just part of the fun of learning pro wrestling, doing all that kind of stuff.
Well, for me, you know what, is I feel like my whole career I've always been on my best behavior. And I do feel like I'm a really good person. I always have the best intentions, but I've always like turned the other cheek. I've always kept my mouth shut when it comes to like the negativity from other fighters, from other fans. And I feel like this is my moment to really become myself and show people my true intentions and my frustrations towards everything. And I get to let my like real emotions out. Whereas I think around especially like fight time fighters where they're just very like focused on just getting the job done, whereas now I actually get to show my like personality, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of people. I'm excited to just be able to show more than one side of me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, from my understanding, did you start your pro wrestling training last week? Is that right?
I was supposed to start it last week on Monday, but I got this stomach flu so bad. So I had my first practice yesterday. Okay,
now you're working with David Heath, is that right? Is that who you're training with?
Dan has me set up with, I have his name written down, but yes, David Heath.
Okay, so for people that don't remember, he was Gangrel in WWE back in the day. One of the coolest entrances in WWE history, by the way. He always had such an incredible entrance. Now, you're starting it now. Wrestling is a different animal in terms of like, what you put your body through. I mean, when you go in the ring, like everyone has this misconception that the ring's all bouncy and like all this kind of stuff. Like it's a hard ring. There's planks of wood underneath there and steel. Learning how to take a bump is no joke. Learning how to run the ropes is no joke. I came home with bruises all over my back the first time I had to run ropes. So are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you kind of like, man, I can't wait to experience this? Because it is like for people, like, of course you're a natural athlete, but it is still different than fighting.
It's definitely different. I think there is a lot of similarities between like pro fighting and pro wrestling, very similar, a lot of the same movements, but I think it's just adapting to not being too aggressive when I don't need to be. And then also, when I walked into the gym, I feel like it's the same when I walk into any gym at the beginning of my career for pro MMA. I'm walking like, hey, I'm here to train. And then you get the eye rolls or you get the like, oh, just like, well, they wouldn't take me seriously. That they didn't understand that I was actually like a serious athlete. They just anticipated based on my social media that I was just some diva showing up there to have like my moment in pro wrestling. So all of a sudden, it took me 10, 15 minutes to prove to them that I'm a pretty freaky athlete. I can do a lot of stuff. I'm extremely talented and I'm focused and driven and I want to do it the best possible and I want to get it right. And I'm going to take it extremely seriously. So I could feel the tone in the room change 15 minutes into like my first training session. And it was like, okay, this is going to be really good.
Yeah, it's exciting too, because I remember like the first time I did a drop kick and it was like the coolest moment ever, like when you actually pull it off, when you actually pull off a move. Are you excited for that part? Because again, you gotta learn your repertoire, you gotta learn your moves, and of course, you gotta come up with a finisher at some point. So here's the question, Paige. Have you started to think about what the Paige VanZant finisher is gonna be?
Oh, I have. I've been planning it for a while. I got a few different options in mind, but I know it's going to resonate with all my pro fighting fans. So yeah, people are gonna like it. I got a 2 or 3 different options I'm playing with right now, and of course, Dan's been such a great addition to helping me through this journey. He's got some ideas too. So once we come up with it and we're ready to put the moves on, people are gonna love it.
Now, are you excited for the top rope stuff, like getting up on the ropes and doing like the high flying stuff? Because of course you come from a dancing background, so of course you're used to acrobatics and things like that. Like, are you excited for that aspect, like jumping over the ropes, doing the top rope stuff?
Extremely excited. And I think that's the great thing is I do have a gymnastics and a cheerleading and dance background. So a lot of the fight stuff, the coordination for wrestling I have because of pro fighting, but then the acrobatics of doing the thrilling, like finishing moves come from my dance and gymnastics background. So of course my fear is that I am kind of a daredevil. So when it comes to like me and my husband, I want to go skydiving. I want to jump off cliffs. I want to do the crazy stuff. So just my only fear is that I go and like commit to, I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And then I like don't actually train it and know what I'm doing. So I need to like force myself to do things in baby steps, but you can guarantee you I'm jumping off the ropes.
Yeah, the only piece of it, and trust me, you have far more knowledgeable people around you than me, but the one piece of advice I would give you, because I learned this really quickly, just learn how to take a bump. That's the key, because when you learn how to take a bump so you don't hurt yourself, like that is like, to me, the biggest thing I ever learned in pro wrestling is, look, because when you don't fall right, like I remember one time I got dropped on my head. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable, but when you learn how to take a bump, like you'd be surprised like how much of a difference that makes in your pro wrestling journey, because it's such a weird thing. Like it's a performance, but it's so physical.
It is so physical. And I think that's the great thing about being like a multi-sport athlete like I was. I grew up riding dirt bikes. I grew up like doing the crazy kid things. And when you jump out of a tree, you want to learn how to land and fall correctly. So me eating it on my motorcycle and all the years of crashing things, like learning how to fall and hit the ground, I feel like I'm gonna prosper in that area.
Yeah. How crazy is it? How good is it, like Dan Lambert doing what he's doing? Like I've known Dan for a long time, and I know he's always been a pro wrestling fan, but like when he started doing stuff with TNA and then of course now with AEW, like he's so good on the mic. He is so like talented. Like I thought like when Bobby Lashley went to WWE, I was like, they should have brought in Dan as his manager, because, you know, Dan is so good on the microphone. Dan, I mean, it's crazy. Like it's so funny. Like he's like one of the oldest of old school like MMA guys, but he is like truly like an incredible pro wrestling person.
It's insane. Dan on the microphone, like you just like everybody in the room just shuts up and listens, because you never know what he's gonna say, and it's always gonna be one of those like drop the mic moments. He's just it's those guys, like it makes sense, and because obviously he's extremely successful in business, that somebody that you know, he's just smart. He just can put things together. He's extremely intelligent. So but to have somebody that's so well rounded as far as like life experience to come out and also be able to like have those power moments in front of huge crowds and be so well spoken, it's absolutely commendable. I mean, I'm excited. That's the one thing I need to learn a little bit from him is, you know, how to cut a promo and get people to listen to you.
Yeah, I think you got it. I tell you, every time we do an interview, like, you know how to cut a promo page. I promise you do. Like I said, I was so, like I said, when you were, because again, I know how nerve-wracking it is when you go in there and you were doing the stuff with Jericho and you were in the ring. I was like, you're a natural. Like, it's kind of crazy because I don't think people really understand. Like, it's really hard. It's really not easy to go in there and do that.
No, it's not. And I think it's just, you know, also being ready for all the stuff that comes at you. But I'm excited, you know, and especially that we're like the whole kicking it off with our drama with Jericho, with that's not over. He said some stuff to me that I'm ready to come at him for. And there's just such a good dynamic of me in the AEW. And I think I'm going to bring a lot to the table. So I'm excited to see where this all takes me.
Yeah. Now, of course, also Austin has been making appearances as well. So now is Austin getting the bug? Is he getting the itch to like want to get in there and do some wrestling as well?
You know what? I didn't think so at first, but then I told him like, oh, this is my pro wrestling schedule. These are when I'll be training. He's like, perfect. I'll be there every Monday. So he's showing up like every week. He wants to train too. They're really excited. And then it's like these moments I'll show up to AEW to, you know, to get out there, and I'm showing up to the appearances, and then you just can't get him out of the ring. Next thing you know, he's jumping on top of people. He's getting in people's faces. Like, he is so talented too. I don't know that I don't know that he'll be able to keep himself away from this. Yeah. Now, you just started training. Of course, you're still making regular appearances in AEW. I know, as you said, you're a bit of a daredevil, so it's going to be hard to hold you back. But how soon would you like to have like your first official match? Of course, I want to train. I want to be well prepared. I definitely want to like honor the sport as much as I can. I know all these people have dedicated their whole lives to it, so I want to give it that proper dedication for the first match. But I guarantee you it's going to be here in the next few months, maybe 2 months. I'm not entirely sure. It's not going to take me long, because as hard as I'm going to work at this and as much skill as I already bring to the table, I really see myself getting out there here in a few months. Yeah. So now, of course, I know that with AEW, everyone has asked you the question, like, what about your fight career? And I know I talked to BKFC right after
your deal got signed, and they said, we're excited for Paige. We're looking forward to working with her and AEW. I know you're still going to plan on fighting, but, kind of give me a sense of that, because again, you do have to put a lot of time into pro wrestling. It's not something you can kind of, for lack of a better word, you can't half-ass it. You can't go out there, I'm going to be a 10% pro wrestler. You got to be full-time in it. And of course, you're also one to fight. So what is your expectation in terms of BKFC, in terms of your bare-knuckle career?
Oh, I'm still bare-knuckle boxing. I'm still with BKFC. I'm about to sign a contract extension. Of course, I didn't have the greatest success right off the bat, but that just fueled my fire even more. Training harder. And I do see a lot of relationship between my training for BKFC and my pro wrestling training. And the great thing is there's 24 hours in a day, and I'm going to use every single hour of that to train for both. The great thing is I do know that I've spoken with AEW and BKFC, and they're willing to work together to make me have a successful career and really let me focus on each individual task at hand. So I'll probably have my match for pro wrestling, and then I will be bare knuckle boxing this year as well.
So a little bit of breaking news there. So you're planning on signing an extension with BKFC?
Yes, yeah, I'm not done yet. And I know people saw me going into it as a terrible career move, and there was all the negativity and the shock of me signing with bare knuckle boxing. But yeah, you know what? I did go 0-2. I need to come out there and I need to get some wins under my belt. And those losses, even though, losing is terrible, I still had so much fun. Both of those fights were so much fun, and I never once thought about walking away. So it's I would love to sign a contract extension with them. I just plan on keep going with it. I feel like it's the most brutal, raw form of fighting, and I want to be a part of their show for the long run.
Yeah, come on, Paige, let's be honest. Neither one was a bad loss. It wasn't like you went out there and got dominated. Like both fights you were in, and both went to decision. It wasn't like you didn't look like you belonged in there. And I say this all the time. I mean, some of the best fighters in the world have gone over there, and it's a whole other animal. So it takes some time to acclimate to it. So again, it's just a learning curve. But it's cool you're sticking with it, because again, I know you've been huge for them. They've been huge for you. So it sounds like you're committed.
Oh, I'm committed 100%. And I do know is the last two fights that I had for them, they were extremely close, both of them. I do know, looking at it as from an athlete's perspective, I did lose to both of them. I know there was controversy, some people saying that I won. It was very close. I do see it. I had two losses, but they were extremely close, and I can see my boxing skill better from the first to the second. And what people don't realize is that, training my whole career, even at Team Alpha Male, American Top Team now, my least favorite practice was straight boxing. That was one I had to force myself to go to. I had to force myself to show up to boxing practice because it took away, I felt like was my best weapon was my kicks and my knees. Kicks, knees, elbows coming from Muay Thai. That was the one I was class I was most excited to go to. So I felt like me signing with bare knuckle boxing, it forces me to really push through the training sessions and find a new passion for something that was the hardest for me to really get focused on. So now going to boxing every single day, I know my boxing is just going to get better and better. And I found this new passion for it. And it's the one I wanted. I really wanted a challenge, and it has proven to give me a challenge, but I'm still fighting the battle.
Yeah, and I know you said in various interviews, and I'm not going to rehash it over and over and over again, but you said that, hey, you could go back to MMA. It could happen one day. You're not sure. But how awesome is it to have the options? Like, you're doing bare knuckle, you're doing AEW. I know you've got your website as well. Like, you can do MMA, but you don't have to do MMA, I guess is what I'm getting at.
No, I don't have to do MMA. At this point in my life, I actually don't have to do anything anymore. But I'm doing all of it because I love it. I've been so fortunate enough that I have one of the best management teams in the world. It took me 6 months after I moved to Florida for them to make me a millionaire. And since then, it's just fueled my passion to realize that I can just keep training and just keep fighting. And I can do absolutely anything I want. They made it so I had the opportunity to just do what I want to do. I don't have to put up with the unfun things along the journey. I don't have to say yes to everybody to scrape by. They changed my life. So I really got to sit down and be like, all right, Paige, what do you want to do with your time and with your life and your career? And so I'm so fortunate for that with having that management team on my side. And so now I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I want to fight for AEW. I want to fight for BKFC. The contract is still open-ended. I could still do MMA at the same time. So I love MMA, and I know my door is definitely not closed on MMA, but in the same time, my passion really is bare knuckle boxing and pro wrestling right now.
It's so funny. We go back a couple of years ago to when you were coming up to the tail end of your UFC career, and we had so many conversations about your contract and the money you were making, and just being brutally honest about what you weren't earning as a living as a fighter. Fast forward to 2 years later, we talked about your website the last time we did an interview. Yeah, 2 years. We talked about your website the last time we did an interview, and you said how well that's doing for you. You're not going to, but let me just throw this out there, Paige. If you said tomorrow, I'm going to retire, I'm done, I'm walking away from what you've done on your website, what you've done, could you do that? Could you retire tomorrow and be financially free?
I could retire tomorrow, be financially free, and my kids would be pretty close to being financially free. So It's like, I'm fortunate enough. I did build my name up to the point. I know how hard I worked in the UFC, and I know how much dedication I had. I did all the appearances that nobody else wanted to do. I traveled the world almost every weekend. I was in a different state doing appearances, and I was fortunate enough. I did have that grind mentality to build my name up. I did the social media, Dancing with the Stars, really did what I could to build myself as a business and as a brand. So then, when my contract ended with the UFC, I was able to go out there and be fortunate enough to sign with BKFC. They offered me a great contract. It opened the doors for all these other things that I wasn't really able to do when I was with the UFC. And of course, I love the UFC. I love the organization. There's a reason they're as successful as they are. And there's a reason that they were able to get to this level. They have a well-oiled machine, and they're very, very good at it. But I know in my heart that I will never fight for them again, just because they just don't pay enough. And it's, I don't see the benefit of going back to the UFC right now. I'm fortunate enough. I built myself up to a specific place, and I can take that and use it wherever I go.
Yeah. Are you still having fun with your site? I know you talked about how much fun you're having with that. And it's been let me be honest, it's been a financial, it's been a nice financial boost as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, it has. And that's why it was like, oh, great day to do the interview. I just came from a photo shoot. So I knew they would have my makeup done. I look all good for the interview. So yeah, no, I love doing the fan site stuff. And at the end of the day, I grew up modeling, dancing, cheerleading, being extremely feminine and girly. And I was away from that for so long fighting. When this opportunity came up, I was like, yeah, I want to go back to being sexy and being a woman and showing my body. And because I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of how I worked. And I'm just fortunate enough. I have a husband who supports me doing all the fun, exclusive content sites. He loves it. Extra photos for him. So no, I'm very fortunate. I love what I do. And it just pays homage to the supportive fans that I have. I do have so many fans and subscribers that are there just encouraging me. And it's nice because on the website I talk with everybody every day. That's the one I go on there, and I'm actually messaging people back. I talk to my fans every day, because if they're paying for my time, then they're actual fans and they support me. Whereas on Instagram, you can't go through my comment section without reading 10 negative comments about me, the worst of the worst comments on Instagram. So it's a way for me to just stay away from the hate and really just soak up the love and support that I get from my fans.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And like I said, it's so crazy because, and again, this is not me taking the shot at the UFC, but it's so crazy. All the opportunities that you've gotten because you're not in the UFC, things you couldn't do AEW, they would not, they just don't allow. And I understand that's their business. It's not a knock on them, but all the things you're doing now, these are things that you couldn't have done in the UFC. So now you're a millionaire. You didn't do that in the UFC. You got your own site. Couldn't do that in the UFC. You're a BKFC. Couldn't do that in the UFC. All the things you're doing is so crazy. These are all things that came after the UFC, and you found so much success. And it feels like you're just getting started, Paige.
I am just getting started. I know I am. And even as successful as I'm sure people see me as, I just feel like along the road, there's things that I could have been started a lot sooner. There's things that are about to start that I haven't yet. And it's just, I'm destined to work hard. I'm destined to be successful. And I just feel like every day is a gift from God to just keep hustling. So you got to use every minute of every day to just be as successful as possible. So yeah, I've been really lucky. And of course, I don't want to just have it be this huge negative, me leaving the UFC was the changer for my life. Yeah, that was one factor. Another factor is moving to Florida, getting with my management team, first year in management, Malki Kawa. It was all those kind of things. There were so many pieces of the puzzle that all happened at the same time. And yeah, the UFC doesn't necessarily allow the contracts to benefit the fighters. It's business. They want to benefit themselves. That's how they become successful. And I get how business works, but I'm in the Paige VanZant business, so I'm just trying to make as much money as possible while I can.
Yeah. You're a pro wrestling person. Do you remember the, I don't know if you heard of or ever watched the guy, Rob Van Dam. Do you remember him? Do you remember that name? Okay. I feel like at some point you're going to have to pull it off and just do the I'm PVZ. Like, I feel like that's good.
Well, that's my thing. I feel like that, who did that first? I think it was Chael Sonnen or it was Daniel Cormier, one of the other two. They're like, it's PVZ. So I swear it came from Chael Sonnen, but I love that.
Yeah. Last thing before I get you out of here, a funny story you told on Twitter the other day about your trip to the airport. And so now here's the funny thing about this page. Like, we do a lot of interviews and I write a lot of stories on you. So I do like type in your name and I always go to your Wikipedia page, things like that, like looking up records and things like that. I swear to God, everyone's going to not believe me when I say this. I swear to God, I had no idea that story was out there. But when you wrote that, I cracked up laughing, but I did Google it. So I was like, where did this story come from? There is a story out there. I had no idea.
Right? There's a story out there. It came up on, I was Googling myself. I think it was on the first page. It may have been the third article down. And of course, I'm sure my parents are like, Paige, like, what in the world is going on? So, but no, okay. Where it came from, I was doing just a Q&A with my fans on Instagram. It was like one of those, you ask me anything. So they're asking questions and they asked if there was a sex tape of my husband and I on my fan site. And I basically was like, my husband and I, we can film ourselves all we want, but he doesn't want to be on the fan site. So they took that as Paige and her husband made a sex tape. And now there's like people, I'm sure, trying to find this sex tape everywhere. But truth be told, if I were to ever make a sex tape with my husband, the only place you would find it is on my fan site.
I just thought it was so hilarious, and I gotta tell you, like, you're so much in the public spotlight, but I'm sure even your face got a little red when they looked that up and there's on Google. That's the thing that pops up.
Oh my gosh, especially because I'm like so excited. My news just broke about signing with the AEW, so I'm like Googling myself and I'm like, son of a gun, like, really? Come on. I'm like, come on, guys.
I love that you had fun with it though, because I cracked up laughing when I read that the other day. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that is hilarious!" And I did it. I Googled it because I was like, "That can't really be right. That can't be because all the other things you've done. How is that the first thing?" It was. It really was the first thing.
Yep, it was first page right there, big bold letters. Yeah. Oh, there's times where it's like I want to get frustrated at these journalists that write like fake stories. Like there's just like that's not true. That's not real. Come on, do your job. But then on the other breath, it's like, hey, publicity, baby. Any publicity is good publicity, and you just got to laugh about it.
Yeah, there's I don't do those stories. There's a reason you still return my messages. So that's, I don't do that.
Well, and that's the thing. You keep a good rapport with fighters. That's why I always answer your texts. I have another. I just told him, I said, hey, don't abuse. I'm giving you my phone number, but don't abuse it. I'll block you again.
Yeah, I don't abuse it. I don't do it. I don't do it.
No, the other guy, I'm this close to blocking him again.
Oh man, I tell you, don't abuse it. Well, Paige, thank you as always for the time. Congrats again on the AEW deal. Please, I've had so much fun watching you in AEW. I'm super excited for you to make your debut. Whatever else you got coming up in BKFC. But listen, I'm a pro wrestling guy. I'm super excited for you being pro wrestling. I love it. I see what you're doing out there, and I cannot wait to see you make your first match, do your first match. Have fun with the training. Please tell Austin I said hello, and thank you as always for the time. I really do appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye.